And we're back. So, I'm not gonna lie, this video is being taken in the middle of the last video. So it's taking a little bit longer for parts to show up than I anticipated, but in the last episode, you have saw by now me installing the hubs and the front hubs and all the spindles and stuff, put these brackets on, getting everything going to there. But we're not doing anything with the chassis today. We are back onto the engine. So, you're probably thinking, hey, don't you want to finish this up? Well, I do, but this is the mock-up block from down in my basement. This is engine number 1 if you guys are, following along. And this block has got a couple scratches and dings and the boards are a little meh, so we're using this as a fixed screen motor. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about is once this chassis is on the ground, we're going to get wheels and tires on it. We're going to get it to be a rolling chassis without the cab on it. We're going to get this thing out of here and we're going to start doing body work on the cab, all that fun stuff. Once the truck has the cab mounted on, I need to place the engine and get it situated. If you notice, I have a lot of relief here cut into the cross member. That's intentional. Typically you wouldn't do something like that. But our goal for this build is to make the truck handle. So we're taking this engine, we're shoving it down as far as we can get it and pushing it back as far as we can get it to get as much rear weight bias and as low a center of gravity on this truck as we could possibly get. In order to do that and get the proper engine placement, I need to have an oil pan. Probably seeing where this is going. Factory oil pans are pretty deep. And they would require my engine to be almost 6 inches higher than what I wanted. Probably about 4.5 inches higher than what I wanted. So, what we're doing this episode is we are making a new oil pan. Let's get started. Okay, so this is an L83 5.3 liter block. Typically, how this works is you have your cover on the front, which we're going to get mounted here in a minute. You have your oil pump pickup runs back here, sucks up the oil, pulls it up into the oil pump, which is mounted on the front of the crank. It ingests it, pushes it back through the motor, and everybody's happy, okay? So what we're doing instead is we're going to convert this motor over to a dry sump setup. So converting it over to a dry sump setup is, there's some things that we got to do. We got to block off some ports up here. We got to block off some ports back here. Basically anything where there's oil passages before in the wet sump setup, we need to plug off. That includes the dumbbell back here. So we're not going to do that this episode. That's machining that we need to do and get plugs and all that fun stuff. The dry sump feed, we're going to feed right back here in this factory port. They make special adapters that you can put a -10 fitting. It's like an extended fitting like this that can stick out of there and you can run your oil feed there. So this is a supported modification. What is not supported typically right now is there's not a lot of LT specific oil sumps. And if there were a lot of LT specific oil sumps, I wouldn't want to pay for one anyway because they're probably like $600 and it's a piece of sheet metal. So we're not going to do that. We're going to make our own. Now we are going to make it out of steel. We're going to use probably a 3/16 inch flange, which you're going to get measured up. And then we are going to make a 16 gauge pan assembly with pickups on the passenger side. So on this side we're going to have pickups for scavenge sections, on this side. So that's what we're going to get started on today. I'm going to get the rest of the parts out of the basement because we need to do some measurements. I need to get the front cover back on here. I need to get the caps. I need to get the crank in, a couple bearings, and put the crank in with the cap on just to do some measurements on how we're going to lay this out. Okay, so I just got off the phone with my buddy Calvin, got the timing cover on, talked to him about this windage tray. So the LT windage trays are mounted to the pan, okay, which is one thing. LS windage pans are bolted to the outer main cap bolts. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to run down to his place. I'm going to get an LS windage tray. I'm going to get the outer bolts, main cap bolts from an LS and double check to see if the LT bolts and the LS bolts are the same length, same thread pitch, all that fun stuff. If they are, what we're going to do is we're going to run the LT inner bolts LS outer bolts and then run an LS windage tray on here, and then I don't have to worry about incorporating any of the windage tray into the, you know, the sheet metal pan and trying to clearance everything, all that crap. It'll just bolt right up and I don't have to worry about it. So that will be good. Okay, so I went out and I got the flange drafted up in CAD. Unfortunately, at home I only have a regular printer, an 8.5 by 11 printer. At work I could print out like an 11 by 17 and get a lot more of these bolt holes. What I'll do is I'll put some lines in here that I can line up separate sheets of paper and sort of lay them across and just double check that my bolt holes line up. So just have this masked out and you can see that, yep, that's centered. That's centered, that's centered. So pretty happy with that. Up here, unfortunately, the crankshaft's in the way, so I gotta untape it here, retape it there, and I'll continue this process with each sheet of paper until I get every bolt hole sort of checked in relationship to each sheet, and then that'll help me get everything a little bit higher confidence level that I took the measurements right before I start cutting the steel. Okay, so I got all the pieces of paper taped together as accurately as I could. There is some slight shifting that I can start to tell, like this one here, this sheet of paper might be shifted slightly this direction, or this one might be slightly this direction, but I can get all the holes to kind of line up, which is what I'm looking for. I just went through and stabbed it. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start measuring off this section, and I'll print this sheet out, and then I'll double check this hole location, these two hole locations, and trace out this section here, and then that should get us where we need to go. Unfortunately, if you know anything about these LS and LT motors, the back cover can't go on with the engine on the stand, so I'm gonna have to either A, lift the engine off the stand and undo the stand mount, or I'm just gonna have to measure off of this plate and sort of interpolate where it needs to be, and then sort of fit it up from there, and then I can double check it on the oil pan, which may be a good method rather than doing all this, but whatever. So this works, and gonna try to do the front next. Okay, so it's cut day. I'm gonna go ahead and fill the tray up with water. I ran down to my buddy Calvin's earlier today, and he hooked me up with a LS Gen 4 style windage tray, so we're gonna get that mounted in here. We're gonna replace these outer cap bolts, use them. So I'm pretty happy with how things are going. Let's get cutting. So we got it all cut out, and honestly, not too bad. I might have to like kiss a hole or two depending on which way I center it. Like that one there, you can see is like just sort of on the edge, but I mean, bolt would definitely go down through there. So not bad for laying it out with a ruler and paper and making little sketches and stuff and placing it over top with a printer. So that's good. What I got coming out next, I went inside, got all the DXS made up. Need to swap this sheet out. I need to put some 16 gauge material back up on the table, and then we're gonna get some more cutting. We'll get the rest of the little bits and pieces cut out for this. Okay, so everything cut out well. We're gonna go ahead and get this all weld prepped, grind all the black oxide, not black oxide, the mill scale and stuff off it. Then we're gonna go ahead and get it bent up. I need to put the adjustable top plate right there, back up into the bender, and let's get going. So it almost looks like I know what I'm doing, which is surprising. So I'm really happy. I got the gas fitted up nice and tight here. All these filler panels came out great. This is all just sitting up there. So the next thing I need to do, I need to go get some little 1/2 inch diameter tubes that are going to be like this back flange. There's not enough room to weld the flange on and have the bolts there. So you need to run like a sleeve, and then I'll weld those in, and then these little plates here will get tacked up into there and block out that back section. I ordered tubing. It's sort of an oddball size, so I just ordered it off of eBay, so it'll be here in a couple days. But that we can leave for later, and we can dress that with a grinder and get it fitted. In the meantime, what we'll do is we'll get this all sort of tacked up. And yeah, it looks legit. I'm happy. So not bad for building it in the garage. Okay, so we got the flange bolted down. I had to cut out another flange, I'll be honest on camera. This back bolt here was offset about 1/8 of an inch from where it needed to be. And by the time I reamed it out, I was getting too close to the edge and I was worried about sealing. So I just said, screw it. I'm going to cut out a new flange. So I cut out a new flange. While I'm cutting out the new flange, I bumped a piece of slag on the final cut. And it offset the outside perimeter. If you look, these bolts are closer than these bolts are. They're supposed to be equal distance. And this guy out here got like real close. So it's fine. I know it's there. Now you know it's there, but it's going to be all right. Now, because I had to shift these back holes, that means that these holes are off a scooch. What I'm going to do to counteract that, I don't feel like cutting out a whole new pan and bending everything. I'm going to put a little bit more bend on one side and a little less bend on the other, and that'll offset these to the side. That being said, these back filler plates, these guys aren't going to work. This is still good because it moves the same amount. You know, both bolts move the same amount, but these two little triangles aren't going to work. So we'll have to just cut out whatever it ends up being. We'll cut out some pieces and fill them in. The front, everything should be absolutely the same. No problem there. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to cut out the tubes for the back risers. This is the back bolt, the factory back bolt, which is way too long. I'm going to cut the tube extra long. It'll stick out past. We'll just tack it in place, and we'll use these bolts to sort of clamp it there so everything threads in nice. Then when we're finished welding it, we'll lop it off to the correct height and then just seam weld it the rest of the way out. But the other thing I did is I put the Windage tray in. This is a Gen 3, Gen 4 style Windage tray with the it's main cap mounted with the main cap bolts. And I just have to do a little bit of trimming up front here, but nothing too rough. So looking good. Let's get started. Okay, so I got the pulled off of here. I got the bottoms tacked in, and the uppers tacked into this upper plate or the pan plate, and then I got this side tacked and here tacked. I'm gonna let it cool off a little bit. You have to be really delicate with this stuff, but it seems to be flowing in moderately well. So next up, we'll pull the front edge out a little bit here, tack that in place, and then work on getting the front nose tacked in. Okay, so I got it sort of tacked together. Everything's, well, it's more tacked, it's stitched up. And I poked a couple holes in it, nothing too bad. Poked a hole there, they'll fill in easy. I can get them cleaned up. And I'm just working my way around, stitching. One good thing with the aluminum block, it pulls all the heat out, the huge heat sink pulling everything down. But with this heavy 3/16 flange and then this 16 gauge here, which is a 1/16 of an inch thick, you have to roll the heat down into the flange, sort of preheat it with your TIG torch, and then roll up and sort of catch the 16 gauge. You're almost doing like a little mini weave, just sort of coming up, dab, coming up, dab, coming up, dab, grabbing it. So far so good. We're just going to keep working this out piece by piece, stitch it all up. I won't grind anything because I need as much weld on this as far as reinforcement goes as possible. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this is coming out. The next thing we're going to try to tack in, I'm going to try to tack in that back plate, but it's going to be kind of tough because it's a vertical weld and there's, stuff in the way. So I don't know. We might wait to do that. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I'm going to let this cool off here for another 15 minutes or so, get everything back to room temperature, and then we'll keep at it. Okay, so it's like 5 days later since the last step. I had my number 12 AN fittings come in, so they are here, and I was waiting on some tubing. So this is some DOM tubing. It's actually a pretty heavy wall. It's an 1/8 inch wall, which is way overkill, but it'll work. And what we're gonna do is we're going to cut it to fit in there. And if you look, I got a nice gap. That's the nice thing about CAD work and the CNC plasma cutter. You can just cut it out and then it fits. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut these to length. Then we're gonna TIG weld these on. Then we need to do some tracing of this hole on the other side to show where we need to cut this tube down to sort of scallop it to the inside surface. We'll get it roughed in, we'll weld it in, then we'll flip it over and we'll grind the excess material off the backside. And then we will just run the TIG torch around the seam to seal it. So let's get started. Okay, so we got all three of these welded, and I got them tucked in here. So basically what I do is I hold it up like this, and I'm tracing the outside pattern onto the tube, okay? Then I'm basically taking like an offset and going off of that and sort of making sure I get the thickness of this material covered. And I'm going to cut that back, and that should give me plenty of material room to work with. And then what I'll do is I'll weld it in, and then I'll grind it to fit from the inside once it's welded. And that should work out pretty well. It shouldn't have too much to grind, but I also won't have a tendency to burn through the edges. So we'll get cutting. Okay, so we got all three of these welded in. You can see there's some extra material around here we need to grind down, get that all sort of flushed out into the bottom of the pan. And then on this side, pretty happy. Everything looks nice. We need to lop these off. I don't think I'm going to go all the way down flush. I'm just going to get them below so that they're not the lowest point. I'm going to go to like this hardware being the lowest point, and we should be in good shape. That's an oil pan. It's getting real close. We'll get this ground up, and I think we're going to be wrapping it up tonight. Boom, that's a wrap. So, got all the fittings in, got those little guys nibbed off and cut off there. But what you can see here is inside I got these ground down nice and smooth, and I got nice transitions for the oil to flow into those scavenge ports. So I'm pretty happy. The next big thing I'm gonna do with this, I'm probably gonna get a walnut blasted inside here just to try to prevent any scaling from popping off after the fact, because I don't want any of that floating around in the oil system. And walnut media tends to be a little less abrasive if there's any residual. So that is what we'll try next. We'll try to get that walnut blasted, but for now, this project is complete. This is a dry sump oil pan for a Generation 5 small block. So that's what we got. So if you guys like this episode, please like and subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. In the next episode, I'll show you guys what we got going on. We got new front sway bar setup. That's all I'm going to show you for now. But yeah, tune in next time. Thanks, guys.